2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour is presented by Pioneer. For cutting-edge agronomic advice for your farm, count on your local Pioneer team for year-round crop management insights. Pioneer, an American seed brand since 1926. And by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen with Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. The international sponsor for Crop Tour is the U.S. Soybean Export Council. Crop Tour 2022 is also supported by RCIS, by Bex, by Ag Leader, by Tyrannus, by Sound Agriculture, by Farm Credit Services of America, by Indigo Ag, and by Land Trust.
Hello and welcome to Day 3 of the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour Live. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Tonight, the two sides of the tour, East and West, are moving closer together, now both in the state of Iowa. Now here's a look at the crowds that have gathered to see the results of their efforts today. The Western leg in Spencer tonight, the Eastern leg about 4 hours away over in Iowa City. Now scouts and other attendees ready to hear tonight's numbers. So let's get to it. Many folks expecting a big crop from Illinois, especially when it comes to corn after last year's sizable crop. Looking at the bottom row of numbers now, scouts finding a tour-wide average of 190.71 bushels to the acre. That's in the second column there. That's down close to 3% from last year. USDA in its August report calling for 203 bushels to the acre, actually 1 bushel higher than a year ago. Checking the state soybeans, the second line here, again, second column. Calculations are at 1249.7 pods in a 3 by 3 foot square, also down more than 2% from last year. Now, USDA estimating 66 bushels an acre in August. Tonight, Pro Farmer Scouts are giving numbers for just western Iowa. Tomorrow night, they'll combine both the east and the west. And this part of the tour is so key, we're breaking these out by district. Let's start in District 7 in the southwest part of the state. Again, looking at the bottom line, 173.7 bushels an acre for corn, down almost 10% there. District 4 in the central west, slightly lower at 180.8 bushels to the acre, down just over 10% from last year. Now, I know we're looking at these briefly. We'll break all of these down further coming up. In District 1, in the northwest part of the state, again, looking at the bottom line, 181.12 bushels to the acre, down 1.5% from a year ago. Moving over to soybeans, again, District 7, this is the southwest portion of the state, looking at the second line, 1,223.85 pods, down more than 10%. District 4, 1,258.94 in a 3 by 3 foot square, actually up almost 3%. And in District 1, again, in the northwest part of the state, 1,089.74 pods in a 3 by 3 foot square, no change from a year ago. Now, let's bring in AgriTalk's Chip Flory again tonight, handling the western leg of the tour, and Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady there in the east. Guys, I know you're hoping to see some better conditions and consistency today after 2 days of drought and dryness in the west, and we saw some just so-so crops there in the east. And Brian, here's what I did for you today. We brought the fireworks with us tonight, so that we could, you asked for a show on Crop Tour, we brought it.
Absolutely, thank you.
All
Ask and ye shall receive, right?
That's exactly right. All right, Chip, let's go back and walk through western Iowa there, because I know we have the most numbers, we have the most information to try to sort through. Let's start with corn, and let's start down at District 7 there. Walk us through the numbers, what you see here that's very important.
Well, the biggest thing is obviously the 9.8% drop in the average yield, and it came by way of the grain length, down 9% on the grain length from a year ago. And there is good corn in southwest Iowa. There's no question about it. A 173.7, it's still down about 7.5% from the 3-year average. So I think that says more about how good it has been in the last 3 years in southwest Iowa, more than it's than a 173.7 is a quote-unquote bad yield. In District 4, the real culprit there, again, is the grain length. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's jump over to District 4 here. Grain length, I mean, that's something that we've been talking a lot about here over the last few days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that post-pollination. Well, it's stressed at different times as the size of that ear is being established and determined. But in many cases, we're looking at some tip back on the corn. It might be some poor pollination at the tip or at the butt of the ear, but for the most part, it's a post-pollination issue that we're looking at. We're down 6.1%. So I mean, we're talking about it's a crop that has seen some challenges. It's just that this Western Iowa crop is doing a really good job of hiding it from the road, and you got to get out in it and take a look to see what some of the problems are. And then in District 1 up here in the northwest part of the state, it was actually the ear count that had the biggest influence on the yield, down 3.6%. Now, you look at that northwest crop and you think, okay, well, that's not so bad compared to a year ago. Now, a year ago, the average yield was 184 bushels per acre in District 4. You go down to District 7 in Southwest, it was 192. So we're working with a rougher crop year ago comparison on those two things. So, boy, it's kind of a tough crop. Yeah. In many ways.
Brian, jump in here. You have any questions for Chip about this corn crop out there in western Iowa?
Yeah, so maturity-wise, Chip, we heard last night Nebraska, they may be rolling on harvest. Some has already been chopped, those types of things. Where are we at maturity-wise?
All over the place, guys, all over the place. I mean, there's some combine clinics going on in southwest Iowa today, and guys are getting things fine-tuned so that they can figure it out. So there's some corn that was being harvested today. But for the most part, I would say that it's in the dent stage, so maybe it's been pushed a little bit. But I had a short route today focusing on data, and I had a couple of samples that were late dough. The ear size was not good. It was two of my lowest yielding fields, so it was later maturing, and it's got a ways to go before it's going to get there. It's got more potential to gain some weight and to gain some yield than the crop that's already dented. But when you're talking about 5 inches of grain length on those ears, it's going to be really tough to get too impressed by it, even if things are great from here to the end.
Guys, I want to keep moving this along. I know we've got crowds waiting on you. So, hey, let's jump over to soybeans there in western Iowa real quick, Chip, before we get over to Illinois.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a nice job breaking it down, Clinton, but in District 7, we've got the bean pod count down 2.2%. District 4 in the west central part of the state up 5%, and then in District 1 up 2.2%. I saw a good bean crop today. Maybe most importantly, what I saw was a crop that was relatively clean. I've been talking about how the issues that the guys in South Dakota and Nebraska have had. I've talked about that the past two nights, and it is a problem west of the Missouri River and up in South Dakota. In western Iowa, I was really pretty impressed with the weed control. It's not perfect. There are problems out there. And hey, you know what? Who knows? We could come back next week and there might be water hemp all over the place. So it's something that we need to keep an eye on. But right now, I was pretty impressed.
You know, Chip, we look at this moisture here in District 4, 41% above a year ago. I mean, that's obviously significant. Is it enough out there to help finish out this crop? Is it going to get what it needs?
I would like to see it get another rain. The rains that have come here recently have certainly helped, and it's better than what it was a year ago. But there are stretches. There are areas that have just completely missed the rain. From northern Buena Vista County into southern Clay County, boy, there's a stretch in there that is really, really dry.
Okay. All right. Hey, Brian, let's bring you in and talk a little bit about Illinois now. We'll start with corn. We'll bring up the numbers again and walk through them. Give me your thoughts on what these numbers tell you about, what scouts saw, on the tour today from Illinois.
Yeah, I just got done telling the crowd here in Iowa City that I just didn't see any wow factors on my route, and I think that's what these numbers reflect. Is it's a good Illinois corn crop. Just where's the wow? And the ear counts, they're up a little bit. The grain length is down a little bit. It's more consistent, much more consistent than what we saw in Ohio and in Indiana. But there's no wow factor this year in Illinois. So when you don't have that, you're going to have everything be really, really the same and very consistent through the harvest season. Because you're not going to have those big yields to pull up. And I just don't think that we have that in a broad enough base in Illinois this year.
Brian, does the nation need Illinois to really pull this corn crop up this year?
Based on what Chip's found out west so far, yeah, we do. We need Iowa and Illinois to pull it up. So we do need some wow factor in both of those states. And I know we're only getting a portion of the Iowa numbers tonight, and we're probably getting the poorer portion based on what we know about the crop conditions and the moisture ratings and those types of things in Iowa. But definitely need Illinois to pull up. Those are the two top yielding states in the United States, and so we need that. Absolutely need it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at what scouts saw in the fields today. We'll start there in the east and in Illinois, where they seem to find a little bit better news than what they have the previous couple of days. Michelle Rook headed out there with them.
Here in Illinois, scouts are finding a good crop, just not a bumper crop like they did last year, mainly due to heat and moisture stress. Brian Divis' route ran from border to border, and he says the crop got better as they moved west. He says the corn has excellent plant health and looks uniform from the road.
But you get 3, 4, 6 rows in, and the ears overall seem to be a little bit smaller.
He says there's evidence of stress, with 80+% of the ears he's pulled showing some level of tip back.
There's too much heat, too much moisture stress at the wrong times earlier in the season. It's just shortened the crop and shortened the ears.
So he thinks USDA's last corn estimate of 203 BPA may be out of reach.
Still a great crop, just maybe not as good as what they had seen last year. It's going to be tough to hit 203 out of Illinois this year from what we've seen.
Not seeing the rows around you'd hope to see, and the length is just not there. That's how we know we've lost our, we were looking at maybe a 240 average, and tip back too far, can't do it anymore.
Ed Sims says while his soybean pod counts from east to west varied from 556 to 2256, he has scouted in Illinois the last 3 years and thinks the crop has good potential.
The beans are good. The beans look good. We've seen a little SDS, not real bad. Lots of 3 bean pods. They still got to fill out.
He says the difference between a good crop and a bumper crop may depend on the weather the rest of the season.
This year, they're still going to need one more good mud-soaking rain to finish these beans.
Potomac, Illinois farmer Brian Seaver says he's running a 4.5-inch moisture deficit at his farm, and so he's looking at yields right around his 65 bushel per acre APH.
Our soybeans look like they've kind of made it through the drought better than expected. I think at least we're going to have average or better soybeans this year.
In Illinois, I'm Michelle Rook.
Now, before we jump over and talk about what scouts saw in the West, Brian, we didn't talk about soybeans there in Illinois. What do you think about soybeans in Illinois looking at the numbers?
Significantly from where we've seen last year and the 3-year average. So that's something that we really need to pay attention to, I think. And if the bean crop has moisture into the finish line, it can add. And so we've seen that as a recurring theme as we moved from Ohio to Indiana and Indiana to Illinois. And the moisture is there. I agree with what Ed said. We're going to need another rain. But boy, it's got the soil moisture right now. And so it has potential.
Okay, potential. Now in the West, drought and heat have been showing up in sample fields since the start. But as Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan reports, scouts were more hopeful as they moved there into western Iowa.
Well, Clinton, as scouts waded through western Iowa on Wednesday, conditions did improve, but that's after a disappointing start to the western leg of Pro Farmer Crop Tour this year.
It seems like everybody wants to talk about record yield or disaster, and we're neither one of those right now.
While scouts found a better crop than what they saw the first 2 days, Peter Meyer says he's still not impressed with the corn. One major reason, low ear count.
This is where we're losing the yield, right? Where we've had obviously some problems here. The weather did not cooperate early on, pollination issues, and then in the case of Nebraska, that crop really went backwards in the last 2 weeks.
Michael McGuire farms in the southwest corner of Iowa, and he says corn yields will be well below last year's surprising yields.
I'd say we're going to be below APH by like 20 bushel. And in this area, the last 5 years, anything below 200 is about crop failure. We've been raising some pretty good corn here lately.
McGuire says leading up to July 4th, prospects were strong, so they spared no expense on inputs.
We did two rounds. We did fungicide with the last pass of herbicides, and then we did with fungicide.
When scouts entered Carroll County, Iowa on Wednesday, they seemed to find the garden spot of western Iowa this year.
But there's really only a couple county area in all of west central Iowa that has great yield potential this year.
The more promising story across western Iowa could be the soybeans.
I would say that there's a greater chance today of these producers yielding APH or above in beans than there is corn for sure.
Stronger soybeans with some spotty showers sweeping across Iowa on Wednesday. Rains that are too late to impact most of the corn.
Look, it's not a disaster like Nebraska was, for sure, but I think that a lot of this part of western Iowa has been baked into the market already. But I don't think the Nebraska numbers have been baked into the market yet.
As we traveled farther north toward Spencer, Iowa, things got considerably drier. The grass you could see was turning brown, and the corn was really stressed. Reporting from western Iowa for Ag Day, I'm Tyne Morgan.
All right, thanks, Tyne and Michelle. Now that's a pretty good segue, boys, as we talk about, okay, what about tomorrow? And so, Brian, for you, as Chip goes on his route, what do you hope to see from his side of the tour?
Oh, from his side of the tour, I want to know, I think aside from southwest Minnesota, it's going to be pretty good once you get out of that southwest corner and move south central and southeast. So I want to know how good that is in that area and maybe how much struggle there is in the southwest portion.
Chip, what about for you for Brian's leg of the tour?
Well, he's going through God's country tomorrow. I'm just saying, going up through northeast Iowa. And hey, Brian, pull me a sample out of Bremer County, Iowa, because it's kind of been the magic spot for rain. If we were in need of a little bit of rain, we got it. It never came in too much and never came in too little. It's been one of those years in northeast Iowa that if we can't make a really big yield with the kind of growing season that we've had this year, it's going to be difficult to imagine what could do it. Now, there's going to be some storm damage in some of the areas up in northeast Iowa that we need to keep in mind. But for the most part, if we didn't lose ears to green snap or something like that, I want to know just how big that crop can be up in northeast Iowa.
All right, well, it'll be something we'll check out tomorrow. We'll have fireworks waiting for you on the final day, guys. Hey, appreciate you being here. We're going to let you both go and get back to the room so you can talk with people there a little bit more about what you saw and what these numbers may mean. Tomorrow, scouts will leave bright and early and finish up Iowa and head toward the final destination of Rochester, Minnesota. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik has a look at the forecast.
Taking a look at the weather as we head into the crop tour here, as we head out there across parts of the Midwest. The crew starting in Iowa City, that's the eastern leg. They're heading up towards Rochester, Minnesota, and Spencer, Iowa, western leg of the tour, also ending up in Rochester as we head through today. And not much going on. We will see mostly cloudy skies across both sides of this tour as we head through Thursday, but just a couple of isolated showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. Things will clear out late in the day. And here's the forecast for Rochester, Minnesota. Late afternoon, 76 degrees. An isolated shower or a storm possible. Otherwise, partly to mostly cloudy skies. Still seeing a little bit of sunshine from time to time.
All right, thanks, Matt. So tomorrow night, we will wrap things up as both sides of the tour meet in Rochester. And if you'd like to join the tour in person or learn more about the tour so you can start planning ahead for next year, head over to profarmer.com/register. So we'll see you back here again tomorrow night for the conclusion of Crop Tour Live online, and when we give you the final results for both Iowa and Minnesota. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Thanks for joining us for day 3 of the Pro Farmer Crop Tour Live. Good night.
The 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour is presented by Pioneer. For cutting-edge agronomic advice for your farm, count on your local Pioneer team for year-round crop management insights. Pioneer, an American seed brand since 1926. And by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen with Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. The international sponsor for Crop Tour is the U.S. Soybean Export Council. Crop Tour 2022 is also supported by RCIS, by Bex, by Ag Leader, by Tyrannus, by Sound Agriculture, by Farm Credit Services of America, by Indigo Ag, and by Land Trust.